we found out what it was, and I was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It was in November last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then in March this year, things took a turn for the worst where my health is concerned, and I was given 3 weeks to live. But
Wow.
I'm still here
Still
with you
here.
guys,
Mm-hmm.
and ba- basically, it's you're calling me an overcomer. Um, yes, in a sense, I am, but it wasn't without a lot of honesty. I don't want to say the whole of St. Martin, but I had a lot of people praying for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And without those prayers, it would not have been possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Prayer works.
Definitely,
Prayer
definitely,
works.
definitely. But that's it in a nutshell. And I went from being totally bedridden
Mm-hmm.
to being able to walk around now and do things myself.
Yes, which is great. Okay. Thank you for that. And so to begin, can you give us a little backstory on how did you come about end up working, you know, in government basically doing the archives and so forth?
You know it's a strange story to say the least,
Mm-hmm.
because um, business administration is my background.
Oh.
Yes, when I came to St. Martin, I started out working at the bank, at
Mm-hmm.
the Bank of Nova Scotia, and then one day, this gentleman who worked in government just approached me and said, "Alfonso, I heard you want to leave the bank." I never really mentioned it to anyone. I did want to leave, but I never
That's
mentioned it to
it's very
anyone.
small.
Yeah, and he told me, "I need an application letter from you." I said, "Okay, good. I will get you the application letter." But in my mind, I was like, "Yeah, right."
Mm-hmm.
You know. And he pulled out a writing pad and he said, "No, I want it right now." So I was like, I can't sit down and give you application. I said, "Don't you have a CV with me?" He said, "No, just 4 or 5 lines and apply."
Mm-hmm.
So I gave him 4 or 5 lines and he took it and he went with it. And I figured, I'm gonna see you again. Lo and behold, I went on vacation, and the same night I came from vacation, I saw him and he said, "Hey, you're starting next week." That was in
Mm-hmm.
December of '86, correct? Yes. And I said, "No, I can't start. I got to give notice." So he said, "How much time you need?" I said, "I need 2 weeks." He said, "Okay, good. Within 2 weeks you're starting." And I started on January 2nd, 1987,
Oh.
working in government, gone from actually financial
Mm-hmm.
to working, where I thought I was like, okay, I just want to be a people pusher.
Mm-hmm.
But it, little did I know that that was the beginning that would have sparked my true passion,
Mm.
which is for the history of St. Martin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how was it when you then started the job? I'm sure at that time you worked with Mr.
Duzanzon.
Late Duzanson, who
Yes.
in himself was a walking encyclopedia.
Encyclopedia,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
You know, Mr. Kandal, I wish I could say, because some people call me small Duzanzon. And I wish I could say I knew or I know 1/10 of what he knew.
Wow.
Like you said, he was a walking encyclopedia, and I was trying to be this sponge, trying to soak up everything he could throw at me.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I realized while Mr. Dusanzon was, uh, I'll say, his expertise lay in the, I would say, the administrative or the procedural part of government.
Mm-hmm.
I found myself drifting in kind of an opposite direction,
Mm-hmm.
and I started drifting into his historical part
Yeah, yeah.
where government is concerned, and he was not really an expert where that is concerned, and so together we complemented
Each other.
each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. And so I'm kind of here as well to pick your brain
Okay, go ahead.
because I know that I mean there's so many, I can imagine the number of things that you discovered and do you remember one of especially being so interested in the island's history, what is one of the first things that stood out to you that you were like, wow, like I didn't know this, or that even the wider population didn't know.
Okay. Two things.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say one thing about Mr. Duzenson. He was a prankster, to say the least, and he will be pranking you with such a serious face that even after you realize it's a prank, you still believe it. Yes, that's how he was. But going back to your question, the first day I stepped into the office and I sat down with him, being kind of inquisitive, I looked around his office and I saw a document hanging on the wall, and I asked him, "What's that?" And he told me, "Read it." So I read it, and I said, "But this is talking about a time capsule buried in the building." He said, "Yes." I asked him, "Where is it? Do you guys know where it is?" He said, "No, but as of today, it's in your hands." That was in January 1987.
Wow.
And it wasn't until 2019 is when we found it.
Wow. Wow.
2019. And that was because I held the only clue towards finding it. And it was like in the form of a riddle.
Mm-hmm.
It says the capsule was placed beneath the seat of the chairman of the island council.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was placed within the walls beneath the seat of the chairman of the island council. So, and I was thinking, how can it be within the walls and yet beneath the seat? I walked around that building looking for um,
A floor plan?
a marking or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until 2019 when Mr. Akoma came with me and asked me, "Alfonso, do you have any old pictures of the how it used to be back in those days with the Island Council Hall?" So I gave him two pictures, and with those two pictures, he studied them, and he came back about a day or two later and said, "Alfonso, I found it." I said, "You found what?" He said, "I found the capsule." And it was because of the picture. There was a pillar, an additional pillar in the picture that seemed out of place to him, with an extra footing.
Mm-hmm.
And they started breaking up that footing, and boom, there it was.
Okay.
But there's still
Wow.
there's still another mystery that I still haven't solved as yet.
Which is?
Together with the capsule, there was a key.
Mm-hmm.
But I have not found anything. So I don't know if there's something else in the building, but I have not found the lock to match the key.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I'm like, can it be?
Should this be a national treasure hunt then?
I don't know,
It's a matinee event. Let's find.
I was thinking,
Mm-hmm.
could be one of the workers when it dropped the key accidentally.
Yeah.
We found out what it was, and I was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It was November last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then in March this year, things took a turn for the worst where my health is concerned, and I was given 3 weeks to live. But
Wow.
I'm still here with you
here.
guys,
Mm-hmm.
and basically it's you're calling me an overcomer. Yes, in a sense, I am, but it wasn't without a lot of honesty. I don't want to say the whole of St. Martin, but I had a lot of people praying for me. And without those prayers, it would not have been possible.
Yeah, prayer works.
Definitely,
Prayer
definitely,
works.
definitely. But that's it in a nutshell. And I went from being totally bedridden to being able to walk around now and do things myself.
Yes, which is great. Okay, thank you for that. And so to begin, can you give us a little backstory on how did you come about end up working, you know, in government basically doing the archives and so forth?
You know it's a strange story to say the least, because um, business administration is my background.
Oh,
Yes, when I came to St. Martin, I started out working at the bank, at the Bank of Nova Scotia, and then one day, this gentleman who worked in government just approached me and said, "Alfonso, I heard you want to leave the bank." I never really mentioned it to anyone. I did want to leave, but I never mentioned it to
that's very
anyone.
small.
Yeah, and he told me, "I need an application letter from you." I said, "Okay, good. I will get you the application letter." But in my mind, I was like, "Yeah, right." You know. And he pulled out a writing pad and he said, "No, I want it right now." So I was like, I can't sit down and give you application. I said, "Don't you have a CV with me?" He said, "No, just 4 or 5 lines and apply." So I gave him 4 or 5 lines and he took it and he went with it. And I figured, I'm gonna see you again. Lo and behold, I went on vacation, and the same night I came from vacation, I saw him and he said, "Hey, you're starting next week." That was in December of '86, correct? Yes. And I said, "No, I can't start. I got to give notice." So he said, "How much time you need?" I said, "I need 2 weeks." He said, "Okay, good. Within 2 weeks you're starting." And I started on January 2nd, 1987,
Oh,
working in government, gone from actually financial to working where I thought I was like, okay, I just want to be a people pusher. But it, I little did I know that that was the beginning that would have sparked my true passion, which is for the history of St. Martin.
yeah, yeah. And so how was it when you then started the job? I'm sure at that time you worked with Mr.
Duzanza.
Late Duzanson, who
Yes.
in himself was a walking encyclopedia.
Encyclopedia,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
You know, Mr. Kandal, I wish I could say, because some people call me small Duzanzon. And I wish I could say I knew or I know 1/10 of what he knew.
Wow.
Like you said, he was a walking encyclopedia, and I was trying to be this sponge, trying to soak up everything he could throw at me. But at the same time, I realized while Mr. Dusanzon was, uh, I will say, his expertise lay in the, I would say, the administrative or the procedural part of government. I found myself drifting in kind of an opposite direction, and I started drifting into his historical part,
Yeah, yeah.
where government is concerned, and he was not really an expert where that is concerned, and so together we complemented
Each other.
each other.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Wow. And so I'm kind of here as well to pick your brain.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I know that I mean there's so many. I can imagine the number of things that you discovered, and do you remember one of especially being so interested in the island's history? What is something? What is one of the first things that stood out to you that you were like, wow, like I didn't know this, or that even the wider population didn't know?
Okay. Two things. I gotta say one thing about Mr. Duzenson. He he was a prankster, to say the least, and he will be pranking you with such a serious face that even after you realize it's a prank, you still believe it. Yes, that's how he was. But going back to your question, the first the first day I stepped into the office and I sat down with him, being kind of inquisitive, I looked around his office and I saw a document hanging on the wall, and I asked him, "What's that?" And he told me, "Read it." So I read it, and I said, "But this is talking about a time capsule buried in the building." He said, "Yes." I asked him, "Where is it? Do you guys know where it is?" He said, "No, but as of today, it's in your hands." That was in January 1987.
Wow.
And it wasn't until 2019 is when we found it.
Wow. Wow.
2019. And that and that was because I held the only clue
Mm.
towards finding it. And it was like in the form of a riddle.
Mm-hmm.
It says the capsule was placed beneath the seat of the chairman of the island council.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was placed within the walls beneath the seat of the chairman of the island council. So, and I was thinking, how can it be within the walls and yet beneath the seat? I walked around that building looking for um,
A
a,
floor
a,
plan.
a, a, a marking or
Mhm.
something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until 2019 when Mr. Akoma came with me and asked me, "Alfonso, do you have any old pictures of the how it used to be back in those days with the Island Council Hall?" So I gave him two pictures, and with those two pictures, he studied them, and he came back about a day or two later and said, "Alfonso, I found it." I said, "You found what?" He said, "I found the capsule." And it was because of the picture. There was a pillar, an additional pillar in the picture that seemed out of place to him, with an extra footing.
Mm-hmm.
And they started breaking up that footing, and boom, there it was. But there's still another mystery that I still haven't solved as yet.
Which is.
Together with the capsule,
Mm-hmm.
there was a key,
Mm-hmm.
but I have not found anything that. So I don't know if there's something else in the building, but I have not found the lock to match the key.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I'm like, can it
So
be?
should this be a national treasure hunt then?
I don't know,
It's a
because
matinee event. Let's find it.
I was thinking
Mhm.
could be one of the workers when it dropped the key accidentally,
Yeah, it could
but
be too.
I don't know. But it
Wow.
was next to
Mhm.
the
The
capsule
capsule.
itself, because the capsule itself was wrapped and then placed within the concrete.
Wow.
But if I have to tell you the the most interesting document
Mm.
that I found, and it always comes to me, and I found that totally by coincidence,
Mhm.
because once again, we had the new section of the archive, or the current section of the archive, and we had what we call the historical section of the archives, which was in a total different section of the building. And there was one key, and I had that key. I was the only one who would frequent that room.
Mhm.
And this one day, I guess I was bored, didn't know what to do. I went down in the room and I started really walking around and going in the back of the room, because I never really went all the way to the back. And when I looked up on the shelf, I saw a box saying 1837. I asked myself, is that a year or just a box number? Because we had thousands of boxes in there. So I climbed the shelf, took down the box, and when I opened the box and I saw the old documents inside, I realized, okay, it was a year. And I always loved history of St. Martin when it comes to slavery. So right away, I switched to abolishment of slavery, and I found the box with the year, and I took it down. And b- believe it or not, the first page when they opened the book, um, I don't speak French, so I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it correct. I saw two words. I think it was abolite and esclavage. And when I looked at the date, I said, "Oh, abolishment of slavery."
18.
That was 1848.
Mm-hmm.
That was when the French side was informing the Dutch.
Yeah, that would be the.
That exactly. So then I started thinking, whoa, I wonder if I can find anything about escaping slaves, because I was thinking on the diamond.
Yeah, 26. Yeah.
Went to the date, more or less when I knew it happened, and voila, I found the document where this plantation owner was actually informing government that his slaves escaped, and then there was also a letter from government to the French side telling them, listen, so and so happened. We want our slaves. I'm saying slaves, our enslaved back.
Yeah.
And the response they got from the French side was really, it touched me, because the French side responded right away and told them, any enslaved person that sets foot, whether by sea, by land, on French soil, will be considered a free person.
Wow. And that's reminiscent of the proclamation Haiti made right after their independence.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
That's
So I ran from the archive straight down to the office. I said, Mr. Tucson, you don't know why just fine? And I started telling him. And he said, okay, what are you going to do? So it was just thrown at me. And I said, what do you mean what I'm going to do? He said, no, it's all in your hands. He said, you do whatever you have to do with those documents. And since then, that was in 2004.
Wow, okay.
Yes, 2004. And since then, those documents, or all the historical documents, has been my babies. I tend to, when I talk about the documents, you might hear me a lot of times saying my documents, because I took care of them, I nurtured them, and I feel like they are mine.
Yeah, I understand.
Personally, yes.
I understand. Yeah. Wow. I mean, I have so much questions for you right now.
No, go ahead.
Which direction to go? But I have a question though. The Irma didn't damage. Did Irma cause damage to many of our island archives, or at least those in the government building?
Okay. Let me see. I have to be.
How am I breaking your heart with that question?
No. You're not breaking. You're not breaking my heart. Okay. I'll be honest with you. When I saw how strong Irma was, I compared what I would call the bunker I have at home with the archive building, and I actually, and I'm going to categorically say this, it is not, it was not, or it is not permitted, but I took those documents from where they were and I transferred them to my home.
You saved the day.
Yes, it's to totally not permitted.
Mm-hmm.
But after the hurricane, I was glad I did
Mm-hmm.
because of the damage to the building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Yes.
it's evident.
So I'm going to repeat again. What I did was not permitted, but
Yeah,
I did it out of
yeah, I know.
pure
Yeah,
love
yeah,
for
yeah.
the
It's
documents.
yeah,
Yes.
and you know, future generations that there's something that wasn't lost because we
Yes.
do know that the fire
In
of
'74, I
1974.
I lost because I say I lost. We lost.
Yeah,
We lost a
yeah,
lot
I
of
could imagine.
historical documents in that fire from '74
Yeah, for those of you who may not know, basically the government building was burned down in
on the
August
12th of
12th. Yeah,
August.
August
Correct.
12th,
Yes.
1974. Yeah, so Martin did go through some interesting times back in the past, which is why history is necessary so that
Yes.
we know what took place. Okay, but I'm glad to hear that. I will petition for your pardon from the governor. But so in addition to that, then I guess I kind of focus then on your your research into the archives of where slavery is concerned.
Okay. Yes.
Um, did we have free towns?
When you say free towns, in what sense?
Okay. Okay. In the sense of uh, so in certain islands or nations during slavery, you would have certain towns that would be just inhabited by and freed former enslaved people.
Um, I would say yes. Um, close to to the vineyard building.
Over the over the bank,
Head of over the bank. Yes.
over the bank, yeah.
I I have not researched it totally,
Mm-hmm.
but there seems to have been one
Yeah, that's what I
in that
heard.
location.
Yeah.
But like I said, I did not really do any research on it, and now that you're mentioning it,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably something I should
Mm-hmm.
check into. But I would say yes, there were.
Mm-hmm. And how would you based on what you've read and over the years, how would you detail the slavery experience on St. Martin? And then
You,
I think after that we can go
you,
into the salt pond and the
okay,
role that played.
okay. You know the enslaved in Saint Martin. Look, listen. Um, Slavery in all aspects is wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
where the other islands had um, what do you call it? Uh, they treated their slaves basically different than the Dutch islands.
Mm-hmm.
For example, in 1848, when the French territories got their abolishment of slavery,
Mm-hmm.
the the Dutch side, okay, it's the Seba Station and St. Martin,
Mm-hmm.
they had a de facto abolishment of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, a lot of the enslaved
Mm-hmm.
were actually fleeing to the French side. And to curtail that, what they did was they said, look, listen, what we are going to do is we are going to start giving you, I don't want to call it a salary,
Mm-hmm.
but they received payment and they would work. Let me see if I get it correct. It was they would work 3 days for the plantation owner.
Mm-hmm.
They because they also received a small plot of land of their own to work,
Okay.
and they would be able to work on their plot of land for 3 days also, and they got the one day free, which was
Sunday.
Sunday was free already.
Oh, okay.
No, that Saturday. Sorry, they got Saturday,
Okay.
and I'm doing the research on that right now because the Saturday was given to them as a free day where they could do their exchange with each other. Like, you growing plantain, this one growing cabbage. So I'm trying to find out if that is how market day actually
I understand.
came
Came to be.
came to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that would be a good connection. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I'm not too sure, but
we can estimate that.
I'm looking in that direction. But nevertheless, though, because of that, in 1863, when the Dutch finally emancipated the enslaved, the payment that the slave owners received was less than what Curacao, Aruba, and Bonaire received, because they said, no, technically you're enslaved, already free, you know. But in short, that was. But they were treated to a certain degree better than the other islands that had a plantation economy.
Yeah, and so you mentioned plantation economy because we know that the conquest, particularly this side of the island, was not necessarily for the fields, but for the salt plant.
Correct.
Yeah. So, what can you share with us on, some of the facts that you discovered the salt plant is concerned?
Okay, we'll start with where Foga is concerned.
Okay.
Because the actual idea, when I say Foga, I'm talking about the salt factory, if you want to call it a factory. The original plans with that was to actually have the salt water flow into the factory, and then the brine is what they would process to produce the salt. But at a given point in time, they realized it was too expensive, too costly, and they switched over to what we currently know about the salt picking and those things. And it was cheaper to do it that way, to let the water evaporate and
then go ahead
and for the salt to form naturally, instead of actually boiling the brine and producing it that way. But
didn't know that.
yes, exactly. And then in researching that, I actually tapped into another bit of history that I didn't really know that it was linked. You call the Long Wall Road?
Yes.
Or I should say the Long Wall, on the Long Wall Road.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that was actually the first infrastructure that was built to assist with to divide the salt pond from the fresh pond.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I follow you.
Exactly. And then with the hurricane of 1819, there was a breach in the wall. The wall was actually 1,000 meters, so a kilometer long.
Wow.
And 72 centimeters, if I'm remembering correct, wide.
Wow.
Yes. So Prince Bernard Bridge was not there at that time. So that's why if you're on 80 Illich Road, where I would say the area which everything used to be.
The famous Chaplatin.
Yes. You'll see part of the wall coming down, and then you reach by the bridge, and then the wall continues and goes on all the way down to where FW Vlon.
Okay. Wow.
Was.
Okay.
Yes. So that little rise in that you walk on. That's part of the famous long wall. Yes.
Gotcha.
That's why it was long.
Got you.
Yes. So now, with the hurricane of 1819, there was a breach in the wall. And what they did, they actually brought in this engineer, Mr. Rolandus, to um, to repair the wall and see what else he could do. And after repairing the wall, he also actually started with digging the Rolandus Canal as a what's the word now in English? I'm thinking Dutch right now. With the avur of the water, and that is how the the channel got the name the Rolandus
Gotcha.
Canal.
Gotcha.
But that fresh pond, it was set up in a way that, and I don't know if you remember the days when it would dry up and you could play ball.
I wouldn't remember that.
Oh no, well,
I wasn't.
it ain't really too long ago, but
I remember. I remember it drying up. A couple years ago, we had a drought.
no, I'm talking about the fresh pond would dry up completely.
No, no, I've only heard stories of that. Yeah, play cricket and
the fresh pond would dry up and they would play ball on it.
Yeah.
And so during a period of year, it would actually dry up, and the children would kids would play ball and when it's full, they would go shrimping and
and
do all those.
What I did here, kudos or shout out to Mr. Leo Friday, who another archive in his own right as well, told me that what people used, particularly when tourism just started on St. Martin, tourists used to go in the pond and soak in it, like sit on it, and people did that because of the healing property. That was a surprise.
And coincidentally, it was yesterday I was reading up on the salt pond on the French side, and the mud, the salted mud of the pond, they would actually use it as a kind of face mask, and they would rub it on their skins, and like you said,
like exfoliate
for its healing properties.
Wow.
But they were.
But it makes sense though. You know, it makes sense. But wow, that I didn't know.
And that yesterday, coincidentally, I was reading up on that, and it was
interesting.
Very interesting. So it gave me something else now to check out.
Correct. Yeah, you probably have a diary full of gotta check this.
I gotta check this. I gotta check that. Like, there's another thing that actually I'm busy checking out because I'm getting conflicting I'm finding conflicting information on it. And you know where the Belle Creole is?
Yes,
the bluff area.
Yeah.
Okay, when you're by the Belle Creole, you notice there's this little, I call it a little island.
Yeah.
Where the bridge got a walkway going up to it that has collapsed. Okay, on that little piece of land there, that was where the leper colony was located. Yes, because we had an outbreak of leprosy on St. Martin, and they had them there.
Okay, so hold on to that thought. We're going to take a quick break and continue with that story.
Okay, all right.
Okay, great. All right, and we're rolling again.
All right.
Okay. So welcome back, viewers and listeners, and you're tuned into the news behind the news with Ralph Kintab here on Mix 94.7 FM, and I'm joined with Mr. Alfonso Blijden. So just before we took the break, we were talking about the salt pond and salt, and some of the interesting stories behind the Great Salt Pond. And we last left off at the leper colony.
Yes.
In
the Belle
yes.
Creole, yes.
Yes, correct.
Exactly. So it was located there. But the mystery part of the whole leprosy issue is that there was also another colony in Point Blanche.
Point Blanche, yes. Yeah.
Exactly. So I went hunting to see if I could find remnants of building or whatever. I found an old foundation, but I don't know if that was it. But then when I was reading in some other old documents, They were talking about going out by boat to supply the persons
Mm-hmm.
with provisions, and the document actually mentioned what they call now, chicken and hen.
Hmm.
But when I went to Point Lunch and I looked across at a chicken and hen,
Mm-hmm.
um, it it doesn't make sense because it's too small
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for something like that. So I still got to figure out when they say they went by boat
Yeah.
from Point Lunch
Mm-hmm.
to carry food for the patients. I'm not. And why did they mention chicken and hen?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's a mystery.
it's a mystery. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. But and while you were talking about the long wall
Wall, yes.
itself, what came to mind was like I think we forget that so much of the salt pond has been filled in. Like
Fielding, yes,
really
correct.
and truly was only back street and front street existed. So if
Correct.
you close
Yes.
your mind and imagine um, Connecticut Street gone, if you imagine Pond Island gone, if you imagine where else they fill in
As a
parts of
as a as
Sutter
a,
Garden
as
as
a,
well
as
too,
a,
right?
as a matter of fact, there's a picture on my Facebook page,
Mm-hmm.
with Sister Borgia,
Mm-hmm.
where you see the cistern of Sister Borgia, and just a few meters beyond the
The pond.
cistern, the pond.
Yeah, the fun.
So that's to show you
Yeah,
how much we filled in
yeah, a lot, a
of that
lot.
of that pond.
Yeah, not even to
Yes.
mention that there's no two dumps on the very same pond, unfortunately.
Exactly. Yes.
Wow. So one of the things that also came to mind, because I kind of tried to build a thread,
Hmm.
follow a thread, because then we have the fact that um, slavery ended de facto
Yes.
in 1848 because it
Correct.
just didn't
Yes.
make sense. Just like when they tried to shut down the border last year, September, it's like, well, it's easy to go through the hills, so
Exactly.
it's like one
Yes.
island at the end of the day.
Correct.
You have that, yeah, and also, as the Sansico put it, the great Salt Pond, the Salt Pond being the cradle of the nation. Have you come across in your research the manner in which post slavery, the building of St. Martin, it's in terms of forming of communities, buying of land, and and because I know that's where you
Okay.
get the cultural aspect of jollification and whatnot.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There, in the past, in the beginning, there were two villages, I would say. You had the outer dorp,
Mm-hmm.
and Phillipsburg became a newer dorp. But however, right there, in Kulsak,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
where the cemetery
Yes.
is located, there was a small village there.
Mm.
But when it's a small village, it wasn't really big because the main village back then was um, Fort William, close,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
close to Fort Hill. Then
Yeah.
that was the main village,
Interesting.
and the church was located in cul-de-sac. With
What
one,
church was it? Catholic church?
it was an old Dutch Reformed church,
Okay.
yes,
Okay. Gotcha.
and that was located there. And the the reason for actually building the building of Phillipsburg was because they would have to walk from Fort Hill all the way to cul-de-sac to go to church,
Mm.
and they would go to church sometimes twice a day, and the walk was
Yeah.
really long,
Yeah.
and we didn't have no Prince Bernard Bridge
Mm-hmm.
then, and people started complaining, so they broke down that old church,
Mm-hmm.
and they used the material, the rocks and the stones from that church to build the one in town, which is actually located on the spot by Orang. You see the office buildings from Orania
Right in
School?
school. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that became actually the second church in
Mm.
town. The first one got damaged, and what they did was they rebuilt it identically on the same spot, same shape, same size.
Interesting.
So the one by Orania School is actually the second, or let's say the third then, or the second in Phillipsburg,
Mm-hmm.
but the third one if you count the Old Dutch Reformed Church. And and they did that just because they wanted to alleviate the long walk that the people had to take
Mm-hmm.
from Fort Hill all the way to there. But on the same when John Phillips passed away, they actually buried him in the center, not in the center, on the center of the foundation
Mm-hmm.
of the Old Dutch Reformed Church.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. Um, and so going into the cultural aspect,
Okay.
because you mentioned, your possible idea of where the marketplace came from, sharing of goods and so forth. But what we do know is something that stands out in our history is jollifications.
Mm.
Can you share details on those cultural practices and how it helped build St. Martin as a community?
Yes. From the little bit that I read up on,
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about jollification, we usually think about um, me gathering some friends and they
Mm-hmm.
come and help me build my house
Mm-hmm.
and,
Work in
and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And in and to a certain degree, a lot of homes back in the days were built
Mm-hmm.
that way because we weren't making a lot of money, so we would do a little cook up,
Mm-hmm.
and on a Sunday, your friends would gather and they would assist you. And then once your home has been constructed, then they do they move on to
Next.
the next one.
Mm-hmm.
But that was also in a time when we had this this togetherness. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
have this hustle that we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody hustling. We don't have time for each other. We don't even have time for ourselves
Self, the children, and family. Yeah,
and,
sure.
and family.
Mm-hmm.
So that that part of it of the coming together and the togetherness is one of the things that we are lacking right now compared to how it was
Yeah, back in the day.
back in the days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. Um, and so I'd like to then touch on some of the technical aspects of your work.
Mm-hmm.
And can you just describe basically what does it mean to be archivist? Like, what exactly do you do? How do you protect documents and go through them and yes,
Okay.
and the like.
Wow. Okay. The it's it actually I give you the rundown of what you call loop der stukken, the how a document actually comes to be. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Um, let's say you send an application to government. That's where it starts. It comes into government. It gets registered. It goes through the process. Once it is signed and handled and everything, then it goes to the archival department where they file it. And that is, besides the document being handled and you getting what you want,
Mhm.
the part with the archives is, I consider it the most important part because you have to be able to find back that document
Mm.
at any given time when you're looking for it
Mm.
to do your research or whatever. So now it 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 goes to archive department and they try to file it in the best possible manner. So, and you don't just file it under, for example, Ralph Cantal. No, you have to have different um, ingangen. I can't bring the word in English, but ways of finding, of searching for this document, and just not one way. For example, I can search for it under Ralph Cantal. I can search for it under the topic, and what we do also, we file under code. So we have three ways of finding a document. In my case, sometimes I would say I have 5 or 6 ways of finding documents,
Yeah.
because over the years,
Yeah. You've,
from experience, you tend to look for documents in ways that is not conventional.
mhm.
And then comes the part where the document has to be stored in on the right conditions.
Mhm.
For example, where lighting is concerned, the temperature of the archives,
Mhm.
all of that is very important, because the temperature in the archives have to be set at a certain temperature
Mhm.
To prevent the forming of mold,
Mhm.
and to keep different kind of pests,
Yeah.
whether cockroaches, silverfish, and those kind of things, out of your archive. Because from the time your temperature drops to a certain level, you start creating mold,
Mhm.
and then you get silverfish, you get cockroaches, and all of those things. They love
Eating
documents.
away, yeah.
And another thing too, metal. We love using
Stapler.
staples.
Mhm.
Yes, when we file away stuff, we actually remove staples, paper clips, and anything that is metal out of the document, because once that starts to rust, it also damages the document.
Deteriorates, yeah.
Yes, and the document deteriorates.
Mhm.
Yes, so, and every now and then, like for instance, with all the historical ones, they need more tender love and care because of how they were stored in the past. Because in the past, we also used this iron gall ink,
Mhm.
and that kind of ink actually eats through the paper, and you would see a word written, but the word is not written. It was written with ink, but when you lift up the paper and you look at it, the ink actually ate through the document,
Oh.
and you see the word written in, I don't want to use a hole, but
I understand.
there's no
Yeah,
paper with,
yeah, yeah,
but you can. So when you hold the document up, you can read what it says,
yeah.
but there
But
is no there is no paper on the spot where.
a form
It,
of invisible ink.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, okay, so I want to get into what you recently started doing in terms of the history. No, how do you put it? The profiles of local heroes.
Oh yes.
But before that, I guess one of my so one of my questions really is in terms of events as well. Some interesting events that you found out about throughout your research.
Interesting events. Okay, so besides
I
that,
know
but
that's broad.
yeah, things that happened besides the abolishment of slavery. Um, I'm also, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag
Okay.
right now, but you're saying events. There's my next post that I'm working on
Mhm.
is not really a St. Martin historical event.
Mhm.
It's I'm saying use the word event. It's a Caribbean,
Mm.
and we're talking about the whole chain of islands coming
Yeah.
down all the way down to
Archipelago.
St. Martin.
Mhm.
Yes, and we were all in. See, we were all involved in that particular event, but I'm not going to talk
Okay.
say what it
Okay.
is. But however, I'm trying to think on events.
Anything during the World War that maybe?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes. In school, they don't really. You hear about. You might have heard then that the the German U-boats um, attacked the refinery in Aruba
Mm-hmm.
in Curacao, and after that you don't hear nothing. It's like St. Martin Sabin Station did not do anything or did not have anything to do
Mm-hmm.
with the war and thing, and we were just sitting back here.
Isolated.
And actually, no.
Mm.
I recently posted something about the island's involvement in during the Second World War,
Mhm.
and what I posted was just a small fraction of the amount of stuff that I found. But because it was so much, I just took out some of what I thought was the most important thing. Because you there were even rumors that some of the French islands
Mhm.
territory were actually assisting the enemy
Wow.
in during the war by supplying them with gas for the submarines and so forth. It was on in some of the documents. There are two documents that I was reading, and one one mentioned St. Bart's, and the other one was hinting at an island in close proximity to St. Martin. Okay, it could be St. Bart's also, but then there was also on Tintamar, there was also a small strip,
Yeah.
airport strip,
Mhm.
that was also used during the
Mm.
war, but they never proved
That's
that
interesting.
these French islands that they were mentioning,
Were
it was never
involved.
proven that they were involved with helping the enemies.
Wow.
No, it was never proven.
That sounds like a Netflix docu series.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Okay, so then yeah, we'll definitely get into what something you recently started, which was a Facebook. No, sorry, on Facebook, which is profiles of local heroes.
Yes.
What inspired you to do so? First of all.
It's something that happened to myself during when I was ill. Uh, they organized. Um, Clara Reyes was spearheading this, and they organized. I don't know. A memorial is not the right word.
Oh, I think you're referring to the. Yeah, I'm figuring out how to put it.
It,
I guess a party ish event that you
yeah,
had,
yeah,
a
and
celebration.
it, it's celebration of life.
Mhm.
A thank you for what I've done,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was so touching and moving because I always say yes. I know a lot of people, or a lot of people know me,
Mhm.
but I always looked at it like, okay, they know Fonso because they know they can, if they need information, they call Fonso, Fonso provide them with information. And I, I left it at being strictly business.
Mhm.
But when they organized that, I felt so much love
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
and appreciation. And I, I honestly can sit here and tell you that I did I did not look at what I was doing or what I am doing as as anything much, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I understand
It was my
your
job.
passion. Yeah,
My passion.
yeah,
You ask me
exactly.
for information,
Yeah,
I get the
yeah.
information for you, I give it to you, and we move on.
It's like water to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I didn't know it was appreciated
Oh, it is,
that
man. Yeah.
that much, and it was so touching. And I thought to myself, I said, boy, I would love for others to experience the 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 part where you you get your flowers and you can
Yes.
smell them
Yes, yes.
while you're still alive,
See them, feel
to,
them.
and
Yes.
feel them
Yeah.
and things. And I said, I would love for others to feel what I felt,
Yes.
but it felt so good, you know.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it brings tears to your eyes, but and I said, you know what? I'm going to do that.
Mm.
I can't do it in the big fashion that it was done for me, but however,
Through your work.
I'm going to do that. And sometimes I don't even know who I'm going to talk about, because it's just like, for instance, I'm sitting here talking to you, and when I go home, I'll be like, you know, let me talk about Mr. Kandav. But then I don't have any kind of information on Mr. Kandav, and there's where the work starts.
Yeah. Then you
to,
start
to,
digging.
to start digging
Yeah.
and find out, you know, then sometimes contacting your family to find out, listen, what you could tell me about him,
Yeah.
and so forth. So, and I, one thing I should say though, I, before I even post anything, it, I always wanted it to be a surprise to the person.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I also always send what I write to the person,
Yeah.
and to
The family.
the family.
Yeah.
Read it,
Very fair.
verify it.
Yeah.
Let me know what you would like, because sometimes I dig up stuff that maybe they don't want me to
Yeah, I
to
understand.
mention.
Yeah.
So say, read it. Let me know what you want to take out.
Yeah.
If you have anything else to add it, and then we go from there. And then they send it back to me with their approval, and then I post it.
Mhm.
And then,
Mhm.
so and I I would prefer, but it is not a criteria for me. But I would prefer to highlight the what you will call the small man out there who nobody never heard about.
Mhm. Yeah, everyday
Yeah,
person.
exactly. Like, for instance, the last one I did, the most recent one, is Mr. Vlog.
I was just gonna. Yeah.
Yes.
That was a
And
great one. Yeah.
and with him, he was actually, like I said, a innovator, because of him, it would have come eventually, but because of him, mail started and being delivered from house to house. He actually took the initiative and did that.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, so and I didn't even know it. So when I sit down and talk to these people, I think like, okay,
And you see how instrumental
how
one person is. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and it's usually people who you don't even
Mhm.
expect. So
Mhm.
that's why I would prefer to choose or to profile a small the small man out there, not the known person that everybody knows did this and did that. No,
I understand.
all are
I fully
important, but
understand. Yeah, yeah. The over, you know those, because there are many people, who have contributed to this island, but they're overlooked.
yes, exactly.
And you have to also understand back in the day, to extent today, but still, you tell you the political differences, the
Yeah,
overshadowing.
and you use the
Yeah.
right word, overlooked.
Yes.
So the overlooked ones,
Yes.
those are the ones I want to profile.
Correct.
Yes.
Which is nice. Yeah. The one on Mr. Brown was excellent, man. So
Yeah.
I think you got a lot of us tuned in to that post that you shared. And so, is there any final words you'd like to share with us?
Yeah,
The audience.
yes, actually. My main goal behind all of this is to raise the awareness of our history, our culture, and our traditions.
Mhm.
Because sometimes when I talk to people, they say, "Oh, St. Martin don't have the history. St. Martin don't have.
Yes,
St. Martin
absolutely
don't
true.
have this. St. Martin."
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe the amount of
A lot.
we have so much that And too much to mention.
Yeah.
And I would love for the people to get more involved in in actually passing on what they know from their grandparents to their kids, because if we don't do that, eventually that part of our history stops.
Hmm.
It ceases to exist, and our grandchildren will have nothing to even talk about or tell their children, because they did not get anything passed on to them. So my main goal is to raise this awareness and the love for ourselves and our history, our culture, our old time sayings, all those kind of things. I want to bring it back.
Perfect.
Yes.
So on that note, I would like to thank you so much for coming on the program. Definitely won't be the last. And on that note, our viewers and listeners, I'd like to thank you as well for listening to this other edition of the News Behind the News, taking you back into history with Mr. Alfonso Blijden. So stay tuned and look out for following episodes and shows. And do take care and be safe. Thank you for listening.